For decades, we've basically been handed a playbook by government authorities telling us exactly what to eat. But, well, the latest dietary update? It has completely flipped the script on literally everything we thought we knew. In this explainer, we're going to move away from that highly processed, carb-heavy advice of the 90s and step right into the era of the brand new 2026 upside-down real food pyramid. It's a fascinating look at how nutrition science evolves, how policy finally catches up to the data, and what it all actually means for the food you put on your plate every single day. Let's dive in. So think back for a second to your school cafeteria, maybe a health class, or even your doctor's office in the 1990s. Picture that iconic, colorful poster hanging on the wall, the original food guide pyramid. You know the one. It practically dominated American food culture. At the very bottom, forming the supposedly healthy foundation of our entire diet, sat a staggering 6 to 11 servings of bread, cereal, rice, and pasta. Every single day. We were basically being instructed by top health officials to build our entire lives around an overstuffed breadbasket. But as we now know with the benefit of modern science, that 1992 pyramid fundamentally failed us. Its carb-heavy advice oversimplified nutrition to a highly dangerous degree. It grouped all fats together in that tiny little tip at the top, labeling them universally as bad and telling us to use them sparingly. Meanwhile, all carbs were lumped together at the bottom as the so-called good guys. This well-intentioned but deeply flawed advice completely ignored the incredible health benefits of unsaturated fats. You know, the stuff in olive oil and fish. It also made absolutely no distinction between nutrient-dense whole grains and fast-digesting refined carbs. So inadvertently, this guidance drove us away from healthy fats and straight toward highly processed, refined carbohydrates. And the tragic result of that massive dietary experiment? Get this. Following the release of the 1992 pyramid and that subsequent flood of low-fat but wildly high-sugar snack products taking over grocery store shelves, the United States saw a concerning obesity rate jump of almost 10%. By demonizing all fat without any nuance, we replaced it with sugar and refined carbs, and that ultimately fueled a metabolic crisis. Section 1. Preventing starvation to battling excess. Okay, to understand how we got to that point, we have to remember the government hasn't always been fighting obesity. Early guidelines, like the 1940s Basic 7, were actually created during wartime. Their primary aim was simply to prevent starvation and nutrient deficiencies, like scurvy. Then came the Basic 4 in 1956, focusing on just getting enough essential nutrients. But as infectious diseases and undernutrition faded as our primary threats, well, modern guidelines had to pivot. By the time we got to the 92 Food Guide Pyramid and later MyPlate in 2011, the new enemy was chronic diseases of excess, like heart disease and diabetes. And that brings us right to today's 2026 real food icon. Section 2. The Fat Phobia Era. So this major shift to battling chronic disease in the late 20th century ushered in an era where all fat was incorrectly viewed as the ultimate enemy of the human body. We've undergone a massive paradigm shift since then. Back in the 90s, the mindset was simple. Fat is bad, carbs are good. Today, the scientific consensus is entirely different. Quality matters. We've learned the hard way that replacing saturated fat with refined carbohydrates, like say swapping out eggs for a sugary breakfast cereal, is actually incredibly harmful to our health. However, the data now shows that replacing saturated fat with polyunsaturated fats, the kinds you find in nuts, seeds, and fish, actually protects the heart. It's not just about the total amount of fat anymore. The source and quality are absolutely everything. Section 3. MyPlate and ultra-processed foods. As the science on fats and carbs clarified, the USDA officially replaced that confusing 90s pyramid with the MyPlate visual in 2011. But right around that exact same time, clinical researchers began uncovering a hidden danger in the modern American diet: ultra-processed foods, or UPFs. Now take a look at this number, 500. In a pivotal, tightly controlled 2019 NIH study led by Dr. Kevin Hall, researchers made a truly stunning discovery. Adults who were fed an ultra-processed diet consumed an astonishing 500 extra calories a day compared to those eating a minimally processed whole food diet. And here's the truly wild part. The meals they were served had the exact same macros on paper. They perfectly matched in calories, sugar, fat, and fiber. As Dr. Hall explicitly stated in the study, the ultra-processed diet caused increased ad libitum energy intake and weight gain. So what does this all mean? The crucial point here is that it's not just about the nutritional breakdown anymore. The physical texture, the hyperpalatability, and the rapid speed at which we can eat highly processed foods, it literally bypasses our body's natural fullness signals. They are scientifically engineered to drive us to overeat. Section 4. The Upside Down 2026 Pyramid. Welcome to the newest dietary guidelines for Americans. This latest iteration has placed everything we thought we knew from the low-fat era quite literally on its head. With the widest part now positioned at the top, the new visual boldly features foods that used to be strictly restricted. We're talking a ribeye steak, a large roast turkey, a thick wedge of cheese, and whole milk. The core bullets of this new guidance are super clear. Prioritize protein at every single meal. Consume full-fat dairy with no added sugars. Incorporate healthy fats from whole foods like meats, seafood, eggs, and nuts. Focus on whole, intact forms of fruits and veggies, and aggressively limit ultra-processed foods. This bold stance against artificial additives, petroleum-based dyes, and non-nutritive sweeteners has actually earned high praise from major organizations like the AMA and the AAP. Now, one of the most profound changes in these guidelines is the new protein target. The new recommendation is 1.2 to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. That is significantly higher than the traditional, long-standing recommendation of just 0.8 grams. It essentially endorses almost double the amount of protein than previously recommended. This marks a massive shift in how we're supposed to build our plates and sustain our bodies. But, the rollout hasn't been without its controversies. The 2026 guidelines visually privilege saturated fats by placing items like cheese and red meat at the wide top of the pyramid. Yet the actual text of the guidelines still recommends capping saturated fats at 10% of your daily calories. Impartially speaking, this has caused some serious confusion among experts and the public alike. The American Heart Association has offered a mixed review because they still deeply view saturated fats as primary drivers of cardiovascular disease, and they worry this upside-down visual sends a contradictory message. We aren't here to take sides, but it's absolutely vital to understand this ongoing debate within the scientific community as they try to translate complex data into a single visual graphic. Section 5. How to eat real food. So how does this all translate into practical, daily decisions when you're walking the aisles of your grocery store, trying to apply all this evolving science to your own life? Well, when we compare the new 2026 dietary guidelines objectively against two gold standard clinical diets, the DASH diet and the Mediterranean diet, we see some fascinating overlaps and sharp divergences. All of them entirely agree on one major thing: limiting highly processed foods and refined sugars. But they differ heavily on the role of saturated fats and red meat. The 2026 guidelines allow for red meat and full-fat dairy as part of a higher protein approach. Meanwhile, the Mediterranean diet actively discourages red meat, focusing almost entirely on olive oil, nuts, seeds, and fish. And the DASH diet strongly emphasizes low-fat dairy and strictly limits saturated fats. The government's catchy new slogan is "Eat Real Food." It serves as a highly effective shorthand for choosing nutrient-dense foods that are free from artificial additives and synthetic ingredients. However, personal medical needs always dictate what is truly healthy for you as an individual. For example, even a deeply real, minimally processed food, like a potassium-rich banana, should be avoided like the plague by someone with late-stage kidney disease. This really just proves that while the government's new guidance is a massive step forward, a one-size-fits-all approach still requires personalization and a quick consultation with your primary care physician. I want to leave you with a vital question to ponder the next time you open your kitchen cabinets. Is the food in your pantry actually real? As you look at the packaging on your shelves today, ask yourself if that natural label is just clever food industry marketing masking ultra-processed ingredients, or if you are truly fueling your body with the nutrient-dense whole foods that modern science now strongly recommends. It's time to take a much closer look at what we are really eating.